Imagine trading your daily grind for, say, a sun-drenched siesta, or perhaps a tranquil mountain retreat where your biggest decision is, well, what local dish to try next.
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
It really does. For many people, the dream of retiring abroad isn't just some fleeting fantasy. It's becoming a very real, achievable goal. More and more attractive, actually. But choosing where to actually embark on this next chapter, that can feel like plunging into just an ocean of information, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, all the details.
The sheer volume of things to consider. I mean, everything from getting the right visa, navigating healthcare systems, understanding local taxes, even just, the daily cost of a coffee. It can make the whole process seem incredibly daunting.
Right.
Lots of people have this really vivid picture of their perfect life abroad, but the actual practicalities of making that dream happen often stay, well, murky.
That's precisely why today we're taking a deep dive into two incredibly intriguing European destinations. They're drawing a lot of attention from prospective retirees. Bulgaria and Spain.
Two very different options.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack everything you really need to know about retiring and living in these countries. We'll cover it whether you're an EU citizen, with the benefit of free movement, or if you're coming from outside the EU and need to navigate specific visa pathways.
Right.
We're going to explore the practical stuff, the real-world costs, the legal bits about residency and property, and just the day-to-day lifestyle. We want to help you cut through all the noise and find those nuggets of insight that truly matter for your retirement plan.
And to give you the most comprehensive, impartial view possible, we've pulled together a pretty robust stack of sources for this. We're looking at official government guidelines on visas and residency, detailed cost of living comparisons from reliable data aggregators, expert legal advice on those tricky property purchase nuances, and even, crucially, firsthand accounts from expats who are actually living in Bulgaria and Spain right now.
Yeah, those are invaluable.
Totally. Our aim is to present you with a balanced picture, really outlining the distinct advantages and, let's be honest, the disadvantages of each country. So you can make an informed decision that truly aligns with your personal priorities for this, well, exciting new phase of life.
Okay, let's unpack Bulgaria first.
Okay.
Because this country, it consistently comes up as one of Europe's most affordable retirement destinations.
It really does.
When people talk about maximizing their retirement savings, Bulgaria is often highlighted. It's seen as the place where your money can truly work harder for you.
Yeah, and what's truly striking here, and something that I think resonates deeply with anyone planning for retirement, is just how much further your savings can actually stretch in Bulgaria.
Right.
Our sources clearly show the average cost of living in Bulgaria is about 41% less expensive than in Spain.
41%, that's huge.
It's not trivial, is it? It's a significant difference that can dramatically impact your retirement lifestyle.
Yeah.
It could translate into, I don't know, an extra year's worth of living expenses every few years, maybe. Or just the ability to afford luxuries you might only dream of in higher cost countries.
Definitely.
And beyond the economics, Bulgaria also offers, a pleasant climate, some stunning scenery. You've got everything from Black Sea beaches to really majestic mountains and a rich cultural history going back millennia.
And there was a note for veterans, too, wasn't there?
Oh, yes, good point. It's also worth noting that for non-EU citizens, particularly veterans, they are specifically eligible for the Bulgarian Retirement D visa pathway. That's an important detail for some. # cost of living, the numbers game.
Okay, let's talk numbers, because this is where Bulgaria's appeal for a, let's say, budget-conscious retirement really takes center stage. When we look at the general monthly expenses, the data is pretty compelling. For a single person, the average cost of living is estimated at about $940 per month in Bulgaria.
$940. Wow.
Now, contrast that with Spain, where a similar lifestyle for one person averages around $606 per month.
So nearly half the cost.
Pretty much.
And for a family, that difference becomes even more pronounced. You're looking at maybe $2,347 per month in Bulgaria versus approximately $3,641 per month in Spain.
Again, substantial savings.
Absolutely. It directly translates into more disposable income, or maybe the ability to downsize the retirement fund you thought you needed. Now, our sources also mention that the average after-tax salary in both countries covers about 1.3 months of living expenses.
Okay, what does that tell us?
Well, while that statistic is maybe more relevant if you were considering local employment, for retirees bringing in a foreign pension, it primarily highlights the overall affordability relative to the local economic conditions. Essentially, your foreign income will go much further in Bulgaria.
Right. allowing for maybe a more comfortable or even luxurious lifestyle on a more modest budget.
Exactly.
Okay, breaking it down further. Housing and utilities, they're often the biggest chunk of anyone's budget.
Oh.
And here, Sofia, Bulgaria's capital, seems to have a distinct advantage. If you're looking for a one-bedroom apartment in the city center, sources say you're looking at around £500 per month in Sofia.
£500.
Imagine what that means for your budget when you compare it to Barcelona, where a similar place would set you back around 1,322,
Wow.
or even Malaga at approximately 944.
Yeah, that's less than half the cost of Barcelona and significantly less than Malaga, too.
It really is.
And even when you look just outside the city center, Sofia stays incredibly budget-friendly. A one-bedroom apartment outside central Sofia is about £380.
380.
Compare that to Barcelona's outskirts, where you'd still be paying around 1,034, or suburban Malaga at about 761. So yeah, for housing, typically your biggest monthly expense, Bulgaria is unequivocally the winner on affordability.
Frees up a lot of cash for other things.
That's terrible.
Now, when it comes to utilities, it's a bit more of a mixed bag, I gather, but still generally okay for smaller places in Sofia.
Yeah, that's about right. For a larger, say, 85 square meter family flat, the costs are actually quite similar across the board. Sofia around €140, Barcelona 142, Malaga 125. Pretty close.
Okay.
However, a crucial point here is that Sofia's colder winters often mean higher heating costs for those larger spaces. That can sort of balance out the per unit price differences.
Oh, right. Makes sense.
But for smaller apartments, maybe 45 square meters, Sofia is cheaper. Around 82 compared to 91 in Barcelona and 85 in Malaga.
Still an edge there. But what about internet? That seemed like a big plus for Bulgaria.
Oh, it's truly impressive. Our sources highlight that Bulgaria boasts some of Europe's cheapest high-speed broadband. In Sofia, you're looking at a mere £8 per month.
£8.
Compare that with Barcelona at 30 or Malaga at 22. This isn't just about saving a few quid, it's about enabling a globally connected lifestyle.
Yeah, crucial these days.
Totally. Whether you're like a digital nomad, a remote worker, or just someone who enjoys streaming, video calls with family back home, extensive online research, this level of affordability for high-speed internet is a true game changer, a significant advantage for retirees relying on those digital connections.
Now let's talk food. Groceries, dining out. This is another area where your money really seems to stretch further in Bulgaria. Enhances your daily quality of life without breaking the bank, right?
Absolutely. Basic groceries are considerably cheaper in Sofia. For example, a fresh loaf of bread is about £1.45 in Sofia. In Barcelona, it's around £1.19, Malaga £1.08.
Big difference.
Yeah. A liter of milk, about £1.30 in Sofia compared to £1.06 in Barcelona, £1.03 in Malaga. Even eggs are cheaper in Sofia, around £3.50 for a dozen, versus £3.93 on Fistero in Barcelona, £2.95 in Malaga.
Okay.
Now, our sources do indicate that chicken fillets might be slightly more expensive in Sofia, interestingly. But overall, most other grocery items are notably cheaper. This means your monthly grocery bill for one person could be around, say, £150 in Sofia compared to £200 or more in Barcelona.
Significant saving over a year.
Definitely. And when you consider dining out, the savings become even more obvious, allowing you to enjoy local cuisine more often. A basic lunch menu in Sofia's business district is about £8. In Barcelona, it's roughly 19, Malaga 17.
Wow, more than double.
Yeah. Fast food is also cheaper, around £7 in Sofia versus 11 in Spain.
And if you enjoy an evening out, a meal, the drink.
The cost difference there is quite striking too. Dinner for two at a pub, maybe 24 cities in Sofia, significantly less than the 40 you might pay in Barcelona.
Okay.
Even just a beer in a pub is only about £1.90 in Sofia, whereas in Barcelona, it's around €7. And Malaga, maybe £4.50.
€7 for a beer.
Yeah, it adds up. A cappuccino also shows a clear difference. 2.64 in Sofia compared to 3.65 in Barcelona or 3.08 in Malaga. These smaller differences, like the price of your daily coffee or an evening drink, they really accumulate over time, allows retirees to enjoy more of their leisure budget, perhaps indulge in more frequent outings, or save for bigger experiences.
Okay, finally, transportation costs. How does Bulgaria stack up there?
Sofia's public transport is demonstrably the cheapest. A monthly pass is about £20. Compare that to €30 in Barcelona, €28 in Malaga.
Big difference again.
Single tickets are also more affordable in Sofia, around 1.60 BGN, that's the Bulgarian lev, their currency, which is significantly less than the 2 or more you'd pay in Spain.
Right, and taxis.
Incredibly inexpensive in Sofia. An 8-kilometer ride is about £6. That's just a fraction of the cost in Barcelona, around 17, or Malaga at 22.
Okay.
If you're planning to drive, fuel prices are slightly lower in Bulgaria too, around £1.15 per liter for petrol, compared to maybe £1.40 per liter in Malaga. Car purchase prices are generally comparable across Europe, so that's not a major differentiator.
But the running costs,
Yeah.
fuel, public transport,
Yeah.
they'd be notably lower in Bulgaria.
Exactly. Again, contributing to that whole theme of maximizing your budget.
Right.
#tag residency for non-EU pensioners. The retirement D visa.
Okay, so for non-EU citizens looking to retire in Bulgaria, the main route is getting what's named as the retirement D visa, and then following that up with a temporary residence permit.
Right.
This visa is specifically designed for retirees from non-EU countries who are receiving a state pension.
And that's a really crucial distinction, isn't it? The sources were very clear. It has to be a state pension. And that pension needs to be equal to or greater than Bulgaria's minimum monthly salary. In 2024, that was 933 BGN.
Correct.
So just to be absolutely crystal clear for our listeners, if someone has, say, a substantial private pension but no state pension, this specific Bulgarian D visa is basically off the table, right?
That's the understanding, yes.
What are the implications of that? It seems quite strict.
It is a significant point for many people, especially those maybe with robust private retirement funds. This can be a real hurdle because private pensions may not be accepted.
This means if your main retirement income comes from, say, a company pension or a private annuity, rather than a government-issued Social Security or state pension, you'd likely need to explore alternative routes. These might be more complex or maybe require higher investment levels.
Okay.
So for anyone seriously considering Bulgaria, verifying your pension type is a really critical first step.
Okay, so assuming you do have an eligible state pension, what documents are needed for this pensioner D visa?
Right. You'll need to gather a specific set of documents. This includes the standard Bulgaria visa application form, 2 recent passport-size photos, and, of course, a valid passport.
Standard stuff.
Yeah. Critically, you need an original document confirming your entitlement to that state retirement income. It needs to be issued by your home country and properly legalized, apostilled or whatever the requirement is.
Okay, so for example, from the U.S., that would be the Social Security Benefit Verification Letter.
Exactly. And for UK retirees, it's a proof of benefit letter from the DWP.
Got it. What else?
You also need proof of accommodation and an address in Bulgaria, comprehensive medical insurance, and a police clearance certificate or a criminal background check. For UK listeners, that's often the DBS check, or for U.S. listeners, an FBI background check.
Right.
And here's a really important one, which, as you mentioned, can be a bit tricky and often needs a workaround. A Bulgarian bank account is mandatory.
Ah, yes. The sources said opening one remotely is nearly impossible.
Yeah, that's the feedback. Opening a remote account with a traditional Bulgarian bank from abroad is very difficult if you don't have any financial history there or physical presence.
So what's the workaround?
The practical solution seems to be opening an online account with a financial institution like Paysera.
Paysera.
Yeah. While it operates mainly as an online bank, it's actually serviced by Eurobank Bulgaria AD, which is a licensed Bulgarian bank. This allows you to get a Bulgarian IBAN number.
Ah, I see.
And that provides the necessary local banking presence that fulfills the visa requirement for non-EU applicants. It's a key logistical step that needs careful planning.
Okay, once you've painstakingly gathered all those documents, how does the application process itself work?
The application process requires you to submit everything in person. You have to go to a Bulgarian embassy or general consulate, usually in your home country or your current country of residence.
In person, okay.
Yeah. The processing time is usually between 4 to 8 weeks. The D visa itself, once issued, is valid for 6 months, and it's really essential to understand it's just a gateway visa.
Right, not the final residency.
Exactly. You must exchange it for a proper residency card no later than 2 weeks before it expires once you're actually in Bulgaria.
Okay, and where can you apply? Just your home country?
Usually your home country or your current country of residence, potentially a country of your choice, but that's subject to specific diplomatic terms and conditions, so you'd need to check.
So once you arrive in Bulgaria with that valid D visa, what's the next step towards longer-term residency?
Okay, once you're in Bulgaria, visa in hand, you then apply for your actual pensioner residence permit. This temporary residency is initially granted for up to 12 months.
1 year.
Yeah, and it can be renewed annually. Over time, this temporary residency can be converted to permanent or long-term residence once you meet the requirements. That generally involves a continuous period of 5 years of legal temporary residency.
Okay, 5 years.
So after 5 years, you transition from doing those annual renewals to a more stable, long-term status.
And what about family? If someone wants to bring their spouse or kids, is family reunification possible?
Yes, it is. Holders of a retirement residence permit can apply for their non-retired partners and children under 21 to join them in Bulgaria.
Okay.
Of course, this requires providing official proof of the relationship, demonstrating you have enough financial stability to support them, and showing you have adequate accommodation for the whole family.
Makes sense. It's an important provision for people wanting to move as a family unit.
Absolutely.
Looking even further ahead, for non-EU citizens who might really settle down and consider Bulgaria their permanent home, is there a path to actual citizenship?
There is indeed a path. Non-EU citizens become eligible to apply for Bulgarian citizenship after they've held permanent or long-term residency for 5 years.
5 years of permanent residency, okay.
So it's not just a place to retire, but potentially a pathway to full Bulgarian citizenship and by extension EU citizenship if that's part of someone's long-term plan.
That's a significant potential benefit down the line.
Yeah.
Provides that extra layer of long-term security and belonging.
Exactly. For those who truly decide to put down roots, #tax property purchase in Bulgaria.
Okay, let's move on to property. Bulgaria really seems to stand out here, just in terms of affordability in the European real estate market.
Definitely. Property prices are significantly lower than in many other European countries. That makes it very attractive for retirees looking to buy rather than rent.
But there are some restrictions, especially for non-EU citizens. Something about land.
Yes, this raises an important point. Our sources indicate that non-EU citizens face a specific challenge. They generally cannot acquire land or real estate with an adjacent plot directly.
So a house with a garden.
Exactly. If you dream of a house with a garden or a decent plot of land, you typically have to set up a Bulgarian company first, and then the company buys the property.
Okay, that adds a layer of complexity and cost, presumably.
It does. However, for apartments, which usually don't include a direct share of the land itself, there are generally no such restrictions for foreign individuals. That makes buying an apartment much more straightforward.
Right.
It is worth noting, though, that this specific restriction on non-EU citizens buying land is expected to be lifted sometime in the future. That would simplify things considerably if and when it happens.
Okay, good to know. And for EU citizens, is it easier for them?
Yes. Thankfully, the rules are more straightforward for EU citizens when it comes to property. They can purchase properties with plots of land or gardens directly. That's a significant convenience.
So no need for the company workaround?
Not for a standard house and garden, no. The only caveat, similar to non-EU citizens, is that they still can't buy agricultural land directly without opening a Bulgarian company.
And the legal process for buying property, is it manageable?
It has its steps, but yes, it's generally manageable, though legal assistance is strongly advised.
Always a good idea with property abroad.
Absolutely. You don't actually need to have residency in Bulgaria just to buy property. However, if you wanted to gain residency through property purchase, which is a different route entirely from the D visa, you would then need to actually live in Bulgaria.
Okay. So what are the steps typically?
Generally, it involves finding the property, doing thorough due diligence, highly recommended to uncover any potential issues.
Like checking titles, debts?
Exactly. Then making an advance payment, usually around $1,000 to $2,000 as a deposit, signing a preliminary sale agreement, drafting the notary deed, which is basically your title deed, and finally, registration with the land register.
What about financing? Are mortgages available for foreigners in Bulgaria?
Yes, mortgages are indeed available for foreigners, and the rates are quite attractive, apparently ranging from 1% to 5% for a 20-year term. That's competitive by European standards.
That's very competitive.
Banks are typically willing to lend up to 85% of the appraised value of the property, though obviously that depends on your individual income and risk profile.
Still, access to financing like that opens up opportunities.
It certainly does.
Okay, let's talk about the extra costs. Taxes and fees on property purchase. What should listeners budget for on top of the sale price?
Right. You need to account for several costs. Property transfer taxes typically range from 1% to 4% of the sale price. Notary fees are between 1% and 2.5%. Registration fees are about 0.5%.
Okay.
If you use a real estate agent, their fees generally range from 2.5% to 5%.
Right, standard agent fees.
Importantly, residential property sales are exempt from VAT, value-added tax. That's a significant saving. But commercial properties are subject to 20% VAT.
Good distinction. Anything else?
There's also a 10% capital gains tax if you sell the property later on. So overall, the expected total purchasing costs, including all these fees and taxes, usually fall somewhere between 3% and 8.5% of the selling price. The higher end mostly reflects including those agent fees.
And what about ongoing costs? Annual property taxes, are they high?
No, annual property taxes in Bulgaria are quite low, around 0.15% of the appraisal value, plus a waste collection fee, which varies by municipality. So very manageable ongoing costs.
That's good news. Any other long-term financial benefits to owning property there?
Yes, a particularly significant benefit, especially for long-term financial planning, is inheritance tax, or rather the lack of it for close family.
Oh,
There is no inheritance tax for immediate family members. Surviving spouses, parents, children, grandchildren, they're all completely exempt.
wow, that's a notable advantage for estate planning.
It really is. Something to consider when thinking about intergenerational wealth transfer.
And purely from an investment angle, what's the potential return on property in Bulgaria?
From an investment perspective, the Bulgarian property market seems to show good potential. Our sources suggest an average annual income from renting out property of about 5–7%.
That's a solid rental yield.
It is. And furthermore, property values themselves are reportedly growing at a rate of 5–7% per year. So it could be an attractive option not just for a personal home, but maybe as an income-generating asset or a growth investment within your retirement portfolio.
Finally, just to clarify, the golden visa situation in Bulgaria. Is buying property still a direct route for residency under that scheme? I feel like I've heard conflicting things.
That's a really important clarification to make. Bulgaria did, at one point, have a citizenship by investment scheme that involved real estate. But it's crucial for listeners to understand that real estate acquisition is no longer a direct route for residency under the current Golden Visa or investment residency programs.
Okay, so that door's closed.
Pretty much for the average retiree just buying a home. Any remaining investment-related residency possibilities typically require a very substantial financial commitment to the economy in other ways, like government bonds or corporate investments. They're generally less relevant for someone primarily looking for a place to live. Hashtag life in Bulgaria reality versus stereotype.
Okay, so beyond the numbers and the legal stuff, what's it really like to live in Bulgaria day to day? We managed to pull some fascinating insights from online forums, expat communities, giving a pretty impartial look at the reality versus maybe some common stereotypes.
Yeah, this is crucial stuff.
It adds that qualitative layer, the feel of the place, which is so important.
Absolutely. It raises important questions about those qualitative aspects of life. They often go way beyond just financial comparisons and deeply influence how comfortable and integrated a retiree actually feels.
Right.
According to various expat accounts we looked at, there's a strong sentiment that life in Bulgaria is pretty good if you have money.
Ah, the caveat.
Exactly. It suggests a practical reality. While the cost of living is low, living comfortably often means leveraging foreign income to access better, perhaps private services.
So money talks, essentially.
It seems that way. For example, money can apparently help bypass some systemic issues like navigating those long municipal queues or accessing private ambulance services quickly. It highlights maybe a dual system for services, where having your own financial independence is key to navigating everyday life smoothly.
On the flip side, what about bureaucracy? That often comes up with Eastern European countries.
Yeah, it does here too. Navigating the bureaucracy can be a challenge. Administration is often described as feeling, quote, stuck in the 80s,
Ouch.
involving lots of paperwork, lining up, waiting around. While some processes are slowly moving online and can be done remotely, practical tasks like, say, opening a business are noted as being particularly burdensome due to the sheer volume of paperwork and the associated costs.
And healthcare. That's always top of mind for retirees. What's the verdict there from expats?
When it comes to healthcare, the public system is frequently described in these forums in fairly negative terms. Words like lacking or even medieval came up. Yeah, with some people recounting experiences of rundown buildings and poor administration. Private hospitals are an option, but some expats suggested that unnecessary procedures might sometimes be pushed, leading to higher costs.
Something to be wary of.
For serious medical issues, Sophia's hospitals are generally cited as the main and best option. But a critical point for retirees, especially those with ongoing health needs, is that if you have a rare disease or a long-term medical issue, it can be particularly challenging. Medication might cost significantly more out of pocket due to a reported lack of established protocols for rarer illnesses in the public system.
Okay, so bureaucracy and public health care sound like potential downsides.
Yeah.
What about safety? That's usually a big positive for retiring abroad.
Yes, safety is a strong positive that consistently comes up in the feedback. Bulgaria is generally considered very safe.
That's good to hear.
Comments from expats noted very little violent crime and that no one really has guns. Most reported issues seem to be minor things, like fights at clubs occasionally. Generally, it's a place where personal security doesn't seem to be a major daily concern.
Okay. Any caveats on the safety front?
Well, a common grumble is that some taxi drivers or maybe some wait staff might try to overcharge or, quote, rip you off. So just something to be aware of in daily interactions. Keep your wits about you.
Standard tourist trap stuff, maybe.
Perhaps, yeah. And driving gets mixed reviews. Some expats note drivers can be aggressive or erratic,
Right.
but many also say it's no worse than navigating traffic in big US or UK cities. So the overall sentiment on safety seems quite positive, focusing on that sense of personal security.
What about the people and the culture? What's the vibe like?
Broadly, Bulgarians are described as hospitable people with a unique culture. There seems to be a strong sense of community and a love for celebration observations, like people here know how to party. There are even mentions of subtle freedoms, like being able to drink a beer openly in public spaces, which can add to a more relaxed atmosphere for some.
Okay.
Generally, Bulgarians are described as warm and curious towards foreigners. But some expats also noted that some locals might have complexes or occasionally try to bring you down a notch.
Interesting nuance.
Customer service standards aren't always as high as some Westerners might expect. And there's this recurring theme in expat discussions that Bulgarians love to complain and tend to think the grass is greener on the other side, often conditioned perhaps to only see the bad. That could be a cultural adjustment for newcomers.
What about employment or starting a business? Any insights there?
For those considering working or starting a business, finding qualified employees can apparently be a problem, although talented IT workers are often available. There's a bit of a mixed view on employees themselves. Some describe them as, well, terrible, citing a perceived lack of skills, motivation, or work ethic. Others point more towards a broader lack of employee culture and numerous challenging employers. So it suggests a complex and sometimes difficult labor market if you're looking to run a business.
Political instability and corruption often get mentioned in relation to Bulgaria. Did that come up?
Yes, frequently mentioned as concerns. There's talk of an unstable government and enormous corruption in administration and the judiciary.
Right.
Entrepreneurs in particular are advised to, quote, keep operation clean and generally steer clear of the government to avoid complications. That's a pretty significant consideration for anyone planning to integrate deeply or conduct business there.
And inflation. That's a global issue, but how's it perceived in Bulgaria?
It's seen as a considerable concern for residents. We saw observations of crazy inflation with food, property, and rent prices becoming extortionately high for such a short period. The purchasing power of the lev, the Bulgarian currency, is perceived as weak, and the expected euro adoption is seen by some as potentially a great shock that could impact costs even further, raising fears of even higher prices with the currency conversion.
What about environmental factors, air quality?
Air quality, particularly in winter in Sofia, is described as bad. This is apparently due to coal and rubbish burning for heating, leading to pervasive smog.
Oh, dear.
Sofia has even been ranked at times as one of Europe's dirtiest cities in terms of air quality during these winter periods. That's a major health consideration for retirees, especially anyone with respiratory issues.
And are there big differences between regions within Bulgaria?
Yes, regional differences seem key. Sofia, Plovdiv, Varna, and Burgas, the major cities are generally considered better for, let's say, normal living conditions and opportunities. They offer more developed infrastructure and services. Smaller cities and villages, however, have reportedly deteriorated, with some even becoming abandoned. It highlights quite a stark urban-rural divide. Plovdiv, in particular, is apparently growing rapidly, but some fear it's starting to face similar infrastructure strains as Sofia. Kazanlak was noted as a potentially good option for artists and remote workers, suggesting specific niches exist outside the main hubs.
So, summing up the expat sentiment on life in Bulgaria,
Mm.
it sounds quite mixed.
Very mixed, yes. It's largely seen as good value, especially for those with a stable foreign income. Interestingly, many Bulgarians who lived abroad are actually returning, finding a higher quality of life there than, say, in the UK because of the lower costs and cultural familiarity.
Right.
However, many who left still tend to view developed countries as superior. Ultimately, some expats view Bulgaria as a great place to visit, but maybe not to live long term unless you have that remote job providing a foreign income stream. That really seems to be the key that unlocks its value proposition for many.
Okay, let's shift gears. Here's where it gets really interesting as we move from Bulgaria to Spain. Spain offers a distinctly different flavor of European living, doesn't it? Often associated with that quintessential Mediterranean dream.
Oh, completely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Spain is renowned for its generally high standard of living, its well-developed infrastructure, and a truly vibrant cultural scene. It makes it a perennial favorite for retirees from all over the world.
It's not just the weather, although that helps.
Definitely not just the weather, although the warm, varied climate with beautiful beaches and dramatic mountains is a huge draw. But it's also the rich history, the healthy way of life that emphasizes fresh food and outdoor activity, and that strong cultural emphasis on work-life balance and close-knit community ties. Plus, yeah, who can forget the wonderful, often misunderstood concept of siesta hours, which for retirees can simply mean a slower, more relaxed pace of life. Hashtag tag tag cost of living a step up, still affordable.
Now, cost-wise, Spain is definitely a step up compared to Bulgaria, no question. But it's still generally more affordable than many other Western countries, right?
That's correct. Our sources show the cost of living in Spain is about 30% lower than in the UK on average. So for many looking to stretch their pension, that's still a significant saving, even if it's not Bulgaria level cheap.
Okay, so what are the ballpark figures?
For a single person, the estimated cost of living is about $1,640 per month. And for a family, it's around $3,641 per month.
Right, compared to $940 and $2,347 in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Noticeable difference.
Yes. Like Bulgaria, though, the average after-tax salary in Spain also covers about 1.3 months of living expenses, which indicates comparable purchasing power relative to local salaries.
So while it's pricier than Bulgaria, it's still considered good value compared to many other developed nations.
Exactly. Particularly when you factor in the robust infrastructure and the quality of life it offers, your foreign pension or remote income will need to be higher than in Bulgaria, certainly, but it should still allow for a comfortable lifestyle.
Okay, housing and utilities. This is where the cost difference really becomes apparent compared to Bulgaria, I imagine.
Yes, definitely. Rent is significantly higher, especially in the major cities. For example, the overall cost of living, which is heavily influenced by housing in Madrid, is about $2,064 per month. Barcelona, $2,102 per month.
Oh,
But compare that to smaller but still popular cities like Seville at $1,411 or Malaga at $6,608 per month. You immediately see how location within Spain dramatically influences your budget.
right. So Malaga is significantly cheaper than Barcelona or Madrid.
It is. A one-bedroom apartment in Barcelona city center, for instance, is about $1,322. In Malaga, it's a more moderate $944. Outside the city center, Barcelona is around $1,034 and Malaga $761.
So still notably more expensive than Sofia, obviously, but Malaga offers a more budget-friendly option within Spain itself. Makes that popular coastal lifestyle a bit more accessible.
Precisely.
What about utilities and internet in Spain?
Utilities for an 85 square meter flat are actually quite similar to Bulgaria, around 142 in Barcelona, under 25 in Malaga. For a smaller 45 square meter flat, it's about €91 in Barcelona, 85 in Malaga, so not a huge difference there.
Very good.
Internet, however, is notably pricier than in Bulgaria. You're looking at around €30 in Barcelona, maybe 22 in Malaga. Still reasonable by many standards, but definitely not the ultra-low cost we saw in Bulgaria.
And groceries and dining out in Spain. More expensive than Bulgaria, but how do they compare generally?
Generally more expensive than Bulgaria, yes, though still quite reasonable by Western European standards. For instance, a fresh loaf of bread is about 1.90 in Barcelona or 1.08 in Malaga. Milk is around 1.06 in Barcelona, a dozen eggs about 3.1 high.
Right.
Interestingly, our sources showed chicken fillets might actually be slightly cheaper in Spain than in Sofia.
Oh, okay. A win for Spain there.
A small one, maybe. Overall, a monthly grocery bill for a single person in Spain is likely to be £200 or more, reflecting that slightly higher baseline for everyday essentials.
And eating out.
Also reflects the higher cost compared to Bulgaria, but still generally offers good value for the quality and the whole experience. A basic lunch menu, maybe €19 in Barcelona, 17 in Malaga, fast food around 11.
Okay.
Dinner for two at a pub in Barcelona could be around €40, and remember that beer. About €7 in a Barcelona pub, though Malaga is more moderate at 4.50.
Yeah, that 7 beer still stings.
A cappuccino runs about 3.65 in Barcelona, 3.08 in Malaga. So, while still affordable and a big part of the vibrant Spanish lifestyle, it's definitely a noticeable step up in price from Bulgaria for those daily treats.
What about transportation in Spain?
Spain has excellent public transport networks, particularly in its major cities.
Yeah.
A monthly pass in Barcelona is around 30, and in Malaga, 28. Single ticket prices are 2 or more.
Right.
There's a particularly nice perk for senior citizens in Barcelona, the T4 card. It allows 10 journeys for just 2. That makes getting around incredibly affordable for retirees there.
That's brilliant.
Taxes are pricier than in Bulgaria. An 8-kilometer ride might cost approximately €17 in Barcelona, 22 in Malaga. Fuel is also slightly higher than in Bulgaria, around 1.63 per liter for petrol in Barcelona. Car purchase prices, again, generally comparable.
But maybe you don't need a car as much.
That's a key point. Many expats, especially in cities like Barcelona with its excellent public transit, find they don't even need a car. That saves a lot on running costs, insurance, parking hassles, #, residency for non-EU citizens visa options.
Okay, residency for non-EU citizens in Spain.
Yeah.
Unlike Bulgaria's specific D visa for pensioners, Spain doesn't have a dedicated retirement visa per se.
Oh, okay. So how do non-EU retirees usually gain residency?
They typically rely on other established visa categories. The most common and direct pathway for retirees is the non-lucrative residence visa, often just called the NLV.
Non-lucrative. So you can't work on this visa? Exactly. It's specifically designed to allow non-EU citizens to live in Spain without working. To be eligible, you must be a non-EU citizen, obviously, have a clean criminal record check from your home country, secure private health insurance that meets Spanish requirements, and critically, provide proof of sufficient financial means to support yourself without needing to work in Spain.
Okay, the financial proof, that sounds key. How much are we talking?
It's quite specific and often the main hurdle. You need to show funds equal to 400% of Spain's IPRIM.
IPRIM?
Yeah, it stands for Indicador Público de Renta de Efectos Múltiples. It's Spain's official public income indicator, a benchmark used for various social benefits and financial thresholds.
Got it. So 400% of that translates to...
Our sources state it translates to approximately 2,300 orders per month, or about 28,000 a year in passive, stable income, like pensions, investments, rentals, that sort of thing.
Right. So you need to prove you have substantial independent means to live comfortably.
Precisely.
Is there any other main option for non-EU citizens?
Well, there's the golden visa, or investor visa. This is typically for a different kind of retiree, perhaps someone wealthier or someone who does want the option to work or run a business.
How's it different from the NLV, apart from allowing work?
The big difference is the significant investment required. We're talking substantial investment in Spanish real estate or Spanish companies, or even depositing $1 million into a Spanish bank account.
Okay, so clearly aimed at high net worth individuals, not the average retiree.
Generally, yes.
And how does the residency process work with these visas? Is it permanent straight away?
No. For both the NLV and the Golden Visa, the journey starts with a temporary residence permit, initially granted for just 1 year.
Only 1 year.
Yes, initially. This can then be renewed for 2 additional years, and that 2-year renewal process can be repeated. So you're looking at a cycle of 1 year, then 2 years, then another 2 years.
Okay, so 1 + 2 + 2.
Exactly. After 5 years of continuous legal residence on these temporary permits, non-EU citizens can then apply for a permanent resident permit, which offers much greater long-term stability. #tag healthcare in Spain.
Okay, healthcare. This is undoubtedly a major consideration for retirees, and Spain's system often seems like a big draw.
It really is. Spain boasts a high-quality, universal public healthcare system. It's generally very well regarded.
And how does access work for residents?
What's truly fascinating here, and a significant advantage, is that if you become a legal resident in Spain, you can typically access this public health care at very low cost, or even entirely free of charge at the point of use. It's funded primarily via Social Security taxes.
That's huge, especially for UK retirees. I heard something about an S1 form.
Yes, exactly. This is particularly beneficial for UK retirees. They can often use what's called an S1 form. This form essentially transfers their NHS entitlement from the UK to Spain. It allows them to access Spain's public public healthcare system just like a Spanish pensioner would, ensuring minimal out-of-pocket expenses for most types of care.
Wow, that seems like a really seamless way to continue receiving quality care.
It generally is, yes, a major plus for UK citizens planning retirement in Spain.
What if someone prefers private care or needs it for specific reasons? What are the costs like for that in Spain?
For private medical costs, our sources indicate a private doctor's visit in Barcelona might cost around 63, and in Malaga, maybe 37. Quite reasonable, really.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Prescription medications are generally inexpensive, too. A common course of antibiotics might cost around €9. If you prefer or require private health insurance, comprehensive plans typically range from €50 to €100 per month. It can be more for older individuals or those wanting top-tier coverage with extensive benefits, of course.
Okay.
But regardless of whether you use public or private, emergency care in Spain is available to everyone, including visitors, and is widely considered to be excellent. #tag property purchase in Spain. All right, shifting to property in Spain. Prices here are traditionally higher than in Bulgaria, no surprise there, particularly in those popular tourist areas in the major cities.
What's the average kind of price we're looking at?
Our sources show the average price in the first quarter of 2024 was around 1,865.8 per square meter. That gives you a rough benchmark.
Okay. And the process of buying, is it straightforward?
It can be quite complicated and time-consuming, actually. It requires careful navigation. It involves getting a Spanish tax number known as an NIE.
NIE, right. Heard of that?
Yeah, it's a foreigner identification number essential for pretty much any financial transaction in Spain. You also need to open a local bank account and sign the final contract, the escritura, with a notary.
How long does it all typically take?
The whole transaction usually takes between 1 to 2 months to complete, so definitely not a quick process like buying groceries. And when you buy property in Spain, you'll incur several fees and taxes on top of the property price itself.
Okay, what are they?
You've got notary fees, a property transfer tax, which can be as high as 10% of the value, depending on the region.
10%, wow.
And various registration fees. These can add up significantly, so it's absolutely crucial to factor them into your overall budget.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting and potentially quite impactful. I read about a proposed new tax targeting non-EU buyers.
Ah, yes, the controversial one.
Yeah.
The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, the PSOE, proposed this new tax, supposedly for 2025, aimed at curbing speculative pressure in the housing market.
Okay, curbing speculation. But how does it work? Who does it target?
What's truly fascinating and concerning for some is the target. It would apply exclusively to non-EU residents purchasing resale property in Spain or acquiring real rights over it.
So only non-EU
Yeah.
and only resale, not new builds.
Exactly. Crucially, it would not apply to EU or EEA citizens, nor would it apply to new build houses bought off plan or directly from the developer.
Okay, and the rate. This is the shocking part, right?
It is. The proposed rate is a whopping 100% on the taxable base. That means it would be added to the existing transfer tax, the ITP.
Wait, 100% added. So could you give an example?
Sure. To put that in perspective for listeners, if you were buying a 100,000 resale property as a non-EU citizen, you could potentially incur an additional €1,000 in tax on top of the normal transfer tax.
Good grief. That basically doubles the cost. It fundamentally alters the whole calculation of buying property there for non-EU folks.
Completely.
Now, this proposal has, quite understandably, sparked a huge wave of criticism and legal debate. What are the main legal concerns?
Well, from a legal perspective, there are significant concerns about its potential unconstitutionality within Spain itself. Article 14 of the Spanish Constitution prohibits discrimination based on nationality, and Article 139.2 guarantees freedom of movement in goods. Taxing the same transaction differently based purely on the buyer's origin raises serious questions about tax equity and fairness.
Okay, so internal Spanish law issues. What about EU law?
Its compatibility with EU law is also highly questionable. EU law broadly prohibits restrictions on the free movement of capital, even with third countries, like the US or UK post-Brexit. The Court of Justice of the European Union, the CJEU, has a history of striking down similar discriminatory tax practices in other member states, like France and Portugal in the past.
So there's precedent against this kind of thing.
There is. Some legal experts even suggest it could violate public international law, potentially leading to international arbitration or even trade countermeasures from affected countries. This proposed 100% tax isn't just a financial hurdle. It feels like a political statement about Spain's housing priorities, maybe signaling a shift away from unrestricted foreign investment in resale markets.
So beyond the legal headaches, what would be the likely economic impact if a tax like this actually passed?
From an economic standpoint, such a tax could have an immediate and significant deterrent effect. It would almost certainly reduce the inflow of foreign capital into the Spanish real estate market, particularly from non-EU sources.
Which could hurt some areas.
Potentially, yes. It could weaken demand and slow down coastal property markets that often rely heavily on foreign investment. For non-EU buyers themselves, it transforms what might have been a significant investment into potentially a prohibitive one, fundamentally altering their retirement or relocation plans.
In terms of implementation, is this a done deal? Or is it still just a proposal? What's the time frame?
This is crucial. It is still just a proposal. It hasn't passed yet. It needs to go through both houses of the Spanish Parliament, the Congress, and the Senate. That whole process could take at least 6 months, maybe longer. And there's absolutely no guarantee it will be approved.
Why not?
It's politically fragile. The PSOE, the party proposing it, doesn't hold an absolute majority in Parliament. They would need significant support from other parliamentary groups to actually pass it into law. It could easily get blocked or modified.
Okay, so it's uncertain. What does this all mean if you're a non-EU citizen considering buying property in Spain right now? What's the practical advice based on the sources?
Okay, practical takeaways. If you are already in the process of purchasing a resale property, the advice seems to be complete your purchase before this law potentially comes into force, if possible. Lock it in under current rules.
Right. Get ahead of it.
If you're moving to Spain primarily to become a resident first, it might actually be advisable to complete your property purchase after you've secured your residency status, because becoming a resident could potentially change your tax liability regarding this proposal, though that's complex and needs advice.
Okay.
For those thinking about a holiday home or a property purely for rental use, maybe purchasing it in the name of a Spanish company could be an option to explore to navigate potential tax implications. Again, needs legal advice.
Right.
And finally, if you're looking at off-plan properties, meaning new builds or properties still under construction, they would not be affected by this specific proposed tax, as it only targets resale properties.
Okay, so buying new might sidestep this issue entirely. Those are really crucial strategic considerations for any non-EU investor looking at Spain right now.
Absolutely. Needs careful thought and likely professional guidance. Hashtag EU citizen advantages in both countries.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about non-EU citizens. What does this all mean if you're already an EU citizen looking at retirement in either Bulgaria or Spain? This raises an important question about the, well, much easier pathways available to you, right?
Yeah.
They differ significantly from the hoops non-EU citizens have to jump through.
Yes. This is where the fundamental rights granted by EU membership really come into play and make things a lot simpler. As an EU national, you generally have the right to live in any other EU country, provided you meet 2 core conditions.
What are they?
First, you must have comprehensive health insurance cover in the host country. Second, you need to demonstrate you have sufficient income to live there without needing income support from the state.
Okay. And that income can just be a pension.
Absolutely. It can be your pension or other revenue streams like investments or savings. It offers a great deal of flexibility.
And when it comes to actually reporting your presence and registering your residence officially, what are the general rules for EU citizens? Is it complex?
No, the rules are generally quite clear and relatively simple. During the first 3 months of your stay in another EU country, you cannot be required to apply for a formal residence document.
So you can just arrive.
Pretty much. Though some countries might require you to simply report your presence upon arrival, which is usually just a minor administrative step, like going to the local town hall or police station.
Okay. What happens after 3 months?
After 3 months, you may be required to register your residence with the local authority, like the town hall in Spain, or a regional migration office in Bulgaria. They'll then issue you a registration certificate.
And what do you need for that? Is it like a visa application?
Not at all. For this registration, you'll typically just need your valid EU identity card or passport, proof of that comprehensive health insurance, and proof that you can support yourself financially without needing income support. It's a remarkably straightforward process compared to the non-EU visa applications we were discussing.
Okay, specific to Bulgaria for EU pensioners, how does the procedure differ for them compared to that non-EU retirement D visa?
For EU pensioners wanting to live in Bulgaria, the procedure is significantly simplified. You do not need to apply for that specific retirement D visa that non-EU citizens require.
Okay, no D visa. What else?
You're also generally not required to provide a criminal record check. This really streamlines the entry and residency process considerably, removing several layers of bureaucracy.
And what about buying property in Bulgaria as an EU citizen? Are those land restrictions still an issue for them?
No, for property purchase in Bulgaria, EU citizens enjoy far fewer restrictions. Unlike non-EU citizens, EU nationals can purchase properties with plots of land or gardens directly. That's a major convenience for anyone dreaming of a standalone house with some outdoor space. No need for the company workaround.
Great. Any exceptions?
The only main exception is agricultural land. EU citizens still generally need to open a Bulgarian company for the direct purchase of purely agricultural land.
Okay.
Additionally, the path to permanent residency in Bulgaria is simpler for EU citizens. You become eligible for a 10-year permanent residency card 5 years after your initial temporary residency registration certificate was issued. It's a more straightforward and less administratively burdensome path than the one non-EU citizens follow.
And for EU citizens considering Spain, it sounds like it's even simpler there.
Indeed. For EU citizens thinking about Spain, it's arguably the most straightforward of all. Thanks to that core principle of free movement within the EU, you don't need a specific visa or even a formal residence permit to live in Spain initially.
You literally just move.
You can simply arrive and establish your residency. Then you follow those straightforward registration procedures with the local authorities after the first 3 months. This level of freedom is a really significant advantage for EU nationals.
And this all leads to the broader point about permanent residence in any EU country.
Yeah.
Right? How does that work for people who stay long-term?
Yes. You automatically acquire the right of permanent residence in any EU country after you've lived there legally for a continuous period of 5 years.
5 years continuous. What counts as continuous? Can you leave for holidays?
Yes, your continuity of residence is generally unaffected by temporary absences. Typically, absences under 6 months per year are fine. You can also have longer absences for things like compulsory military service or even one single absence of up to 12 consecutive months for important reasons like pregnancy, serious illness, study, or work assignment.
That's quite flexible.
It is. However, it's crucial to note that you can lose your right to permanent residence if you live outside that host country for more than 2 consecutive years.
Ah, okay. So you need to maintain some connection.
Exactly. It highlights the substantial flexibility and security that EU citizenship offers, but also the importance of maintaining your physical presence in the country if securing and keeping permanent residency is your long-term goal.
Right. We've really covered a lot of ground here. We've navigated the visa maze, crunched the cost of living numbers, explored the tricky bits of property purchase, and even touched on those real-life local experiences and challenges in both Bulgaria and Spain. So after this pretty comprehensive deep dive, which destination truly calls to you, the listener? It often seems to boil down to a fundamental balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between pure economics and, let's say, desired comfort or familiarity.
I think that's a fair summary. Bulgaria unequivocally wins on pure economics. Our sources consistently showed a significantly lower cost of living right across the board. That's housing, groceries, dining out, transport, even that super cheap internet.
Yeah.
This isn't just about saving money, though that's huge. It means your pension or your remote salary will stretch much, much further in Bulgaria. That allows for substantial savings, or perhaps a considerably higher standard of living on the same budget. You might be able to afford luxuries or experiences that would simply be out of reach elsewhere.
Spain, on the other hand, offers that more established, maybe more familiar Western European lifestyle, often associated with its vibrant culture and highly developed infrastructure. While it's definitely more expensive than Bulgaria, it's still generally more affordable than many other Western countries, like the UK or the US.
True.
It comes with those highly developed amenities, a really well-established expat community in many areas, and arguably easier integration for some, maybe due to language links or broader availability of international schools and services. Malaga, in particular, struck me as a compelling middle ground, offering that quintessential Spanish climate and healthcare quality, but at a notably lower cost than bustling Barcelona or Madrid, though still certainly not as low as Sofia.
Healthcare is often a key, maybe the key deciding factor for many retirees. And here the systems present a really clear contrast. Spain boasts that strong, high-quality, universal public healthcare system, largely free at the point of use for residents. Especially beneficial, as we said, for UK retirees with an S1 form.
Right.
In Bulgaria, while there is a public system, it's generally seen as less resourced. Many expats seem to opt for more affordable private care or simply pay out of pocket for private visits, often finding that a more reliable or accessible option for their specific needs. Emergency care is available to everyone in both countries, thankfully, but the overall access and perceived quality of routine public health care could be a significant differentiator for your peace of mind.
The property market also presents those clear contrasts: cost and accessibility. Bulgaria's property is significantly cheaper, no question. And it seems to offer good investment potential with decent property value growth and rental income possibilities.
Mhm.
However, for non-EU citizens, there are still some of those lingering restrictions on buying land directly, often requiring that company workaround, although apartments are generally straightforward.
Whereas in Spain, property prices are traditionally higher, especially in desirable coastal regions and major cities. And crucially for non-EU buyers, there's that looming potential of that highly controversial new 100% tax on resale property purchases if it ever passes.
Creates significant uncertainty.
Absolutely. It could dramatically inflate the cost of buying a resale home. And the transaction process itself in Spain is also generally more involved and time-consuming, requiring careful navigation.
Beyond the tangible stuff, the costs, the legal frameworks, the quality of life, those intangible aspects, they play a huge role in daily satisfaction, don't they?
Immensely. Bulgaria offers that mild climate, stunning natural beauty, the mountains, the Black Sea coast. Its people are generally described as hospitable and curious towards foreigners. But our sources noted potential challenges with bureaucracy, like political instability, and quite varied public services and infrastructure, especially once you get outside the major cities. And there's that noted issue of winter air quality in Sofia, which is a real concern.
Right.
Spain, conversely, is cherished for its warm, varied climate, beaches, mountains, everything in between. Its rich history, its vibrant, deeply ingrained culture. There's that strong emphasis on work-life balance, community engagement, and maybe a slower pace of life that appeals to many.
And the trade-off for the higher cost.
Well, you often gain access to more developed amenities, a more broadly recognized Western lifestyle perhaps, and a very established expatriate community in many areas that can really ease integration.
And just quickly summing up bureaucracy and ease of doing things.
Bulgaria was noted for its often outdated administration and perceived corruption, with starting a business seen as particularly burdensome. Spain's property transactions can be time-consuming, as we've discussed, and that proposed new tax creates a definite layer of legal uncertainty for non-EU investors, demanding careful planning and likely professional advice.
So the bottom line is, neither country is perfect.
Not at all. Neither Bulgaria nor Spain is without its trade-offs. Each has its unique set of advantages and challenges. The better value is truly subjective. It depends entirely on your personal priorities and what you're seeking in your retirement.
Right.
Are you primarily focused on maximizing your savings, making every pound, dollar, or euro stretch as far as possible? Is your absolute top priority a robust, high-quality public healthcare system that's readily available to residents? Or perhaps it's more about seeking a specific cultural immersion, a vibrant social scene, or finding a ready-made expatriate community for easier integration. These are the crucial questions you need to ask yourself. Hashtag tag outro.
So we've navigated the intricate visa requirements, we've crunched the cost of living numbers right down to the price of a daily cappuccino, explored the nuances of property purchase, and even delved into those sometimes unfiltered local experiences and bureaucratic hurdles in both Bulgaria and Spain. Whether it's Bulgaria's exceptional value proposition, offering a lifestyle of significant affordability, or Spain's sun-drenched, amenity-rich Mediterranean lifestyle, both offer really compelling reasons to consider them for your retirement. And that applies whether you're an EU citizen with that streamlined access or a non-EU citizen navigating the specific visa pathways.
It truly does come down to what you prioritize in this next exciting chapter of your life. Is it all about maximizing those savings and making every single dollar or euro stretch as far as humanly possible? Is it about prioritizing a really robust, high-quality public healthcare system and a deeply established infrastructure? Or perhaps it's more about seeking a specific cultural immersion, a vibrant social scene, or just a particular pace of daily life?
As you consider these two very different, yet equally captivating European retirement havens, maybe ask yourself this. Beyond all the numbers and the legalities we've discussed, what kind of daily rhythm truly resonates with the dream retirement you've been imagining? And what unforeseen challenges, or perhaps unexpected joys, might each of these unique paths reveal when you finally take that deep dive yourself?